For almost 2,000 years, the Catholic Church had a consistent teaching on the death penalty. And then, well, it changed. Today, we're going to dive into that journey. It's a fascinating story about theology, justice, and how an ancient faith grapples with our modern world.
So, this is the big question, right? For pretty much its entire history, the Church was okay with the state's right to use the death penalty. Then, boom, in 2018, Pope Francis calls it inadmissible. How in the world does a 2,000-year-old teaching get a rewrite like that? Let's get into it.
Okay, so to really get the change, we have to start at the beginning. We need to understand the original teaching. For most of church history, the position was pretty straightforward. The death penalty could be a just and totally legitimate tool for the state to use. And the key phrase here is had the right. It was never a mandate, It wasn't you must use it. It was you can use it, but only if it's absolutely necessary to protect everybody. The main goal wasn't really revenge. It was about keeping society safe. Now, this view didn't just come out of nowhere. It was grounded in how they interpreted Scripture. That line from Genesis, it was seen as a basic principle of justice. And when St. Paul talks about the state bearing the sword in Romans, that was understood to mean, the government has the power to use lethal force to keep order.
So what happened? How did we get from bearing the sword to a complete no-go? This is where the story really gets interesting. It wasn't that the church threw out its core beliefs. Instead, it looked at the modern world and realized those same beliefs required a totally different answer.
This whole shift was really pushed by three huge developments. You can think of them as the three legs of the stool that the new teaching stands on. Let's break them down one by one.
First up, and this is maybe the most practical reason, is we just have better prisons now. The logic is actually pretty simple. If we can safely lock up dangerous criminals for the rest of their lives and protect society without having to kill them, well, then executing them is no longer an absolute necessity, is it?
The second reason is a bit more philosophical. It's this growing idea that human dignity is just built in. It's something you have because you're human, period. And you can't lose it no matter how terrible your crimes are. So from that perspective, intentionally ending a human life, even a guilty one, starts to look really, really problematic.
And this leads right into our third point. The whole idea of why we punish people has shifted. In the past, justice was focused a lot on retribution, an eye for an eye. But the modern view really emphasizes protecting society and, this is crucial, rehabilitating the offender. The death penalty kind of makes that last part impossible for obvious reasons.
So you take these three things, better prisons, this deep respect for human dignity, and a new focus for punishment, and they all lead to one final destination. Let's look at exactly where the Church's teaching is today. The big year was 2018. This is when, under Pope Francis, the official Catechism of the Catholic Church, which is like the summary of everything the Church teaches, was officially changed. And this wasn't just some off-the-cuff remark. This was a formal update to the official rule book.
And here it is, the new wording. It is so strong and so clear. It doesn't say it's discouraged or it should be rare. It says inadmissible. And why? Because it's an attack on the dignity of the person, that same principle we were just talking about. This right here is the heart of the modern teaching.
And this wasn't just some internal memo. This change became a global mission. The Church is now actively committed to working for the abolition of the death penalty everywhere, for everyone. It's become a huge part of its social justice work around the world. Okay, so the teaching changed. But what does that really mean for a Catholic person in the pews? How are you supposed to process a shift like this? This is where we get into some really important ideas in theology.
To really wrap your head around this, you've got to understand this key distinction in Catholic morality. You've got some acts, called intrinsic evils, that are considered wrong, full stop, always, everywhere, no exceptions. But then other issues fall under what's called prudential judgment, which is all about figuring out the best way to apply timeless principles to our changing, real-world circumstances.
And these examples make it super clear. The Church teaches that things like abortion and euthanasia are intrinsically evil, always wrong. But the death penalty is in that other category. The new teaching against it is a prudential judgment. It's a judgment call based on the fact that in today's world, we just don't need it to keep people safe anymore.
So what's the bottom line for Catholics? For a big authoritative teaching like this, the Church asks for something with a very formal name: religious submission of mind and will. All that really means is that believers are expected to accept the teaching and try to live by it, trusting the Church's guidance
even if they don't personally understand every single reason for it.
And this is the most crucial takeaway. The Church does not see this as contradicting what it taught in the past. It sees it as an authentic development of doctrine. The core principle that the state must protect its people, that's exactly the same. What's developed is the understanding of how to best do that in a world that has maximum security prisons.
And that kind of leaves us with one final big question to chew on. This whole story shows us that a really ancient teaching can grow and adapt to new realities. So as our world keeps changing with new technologies and new social structures, what other long-held beliefs, whether in faith or law or society, might be next in line for their own development of doctrine? It really makes you wonder, doesn't it?